At 2:50 p.m., I was standing by the school gates like I had 100 times before, hands in my coat pockets, waiting for my daughter to run up and ask if she could have ice cream before dinner. Routine, repetition, safety. That's what I thought I was standing in. I was wrong. Miss Callahan, my daughter's teacher, walked toward me, not with her usual bright nod and clipboard in hand, but slow, hesitant. Her skin looked almost translucent under the late autumn sun, like something was draining out of her. She glanced over her shoulder twice before she reached me. Then she didn't greet me. She didn't ask about the parent-teacher conference or share something funny my kid said in class. She just leaned in and whispered, so low I almost thought I imagined it the first time. "Please, don't go home yet. Trust me." I felt something shift in the center of my chest, a drop. "Excuse me?" I asked, forcing a smile, assuming she meant traffic or some neighborhood mix-up. But she looked like she was about to be sick. "Your wife's car. It's been parked in the lot across from our street all day." Her eyes flicked toward the row of houses that lined the block. "She's not alone. Her boss's car is there too. Same plate from the gala last spring." She didn't say anything else. She didn't need to. My ears started ringing. Not loudly, more like the dull hum of bad wiring. And for a few seconds, I just stared at her. No breath. No heartbeat. Just static. I nodded once. No expression. No thank you. Walked back to my car, which I had parked a block away because the school pickup lane was always a mess. I clicked the door open and sat down slowly, hands shaking slightly, but not from anger. Not even shock. It was worse than that. It was recognition. Like something that had been itching under my skin for months finally showed its face. By 3:10, I was parked 2 houses down from mine. Curtains were drawn. Nothing unusual. But suddenly, every normal thing became suspicious. The porch light wasn't flickering like it had been yesterday. That meant someone had replaced the bulb. Who replaces bulbs at 2 p.m.? Or was it on all night? I counted every car that passed, each one not his. Then at 3:37, a shadow moved past the front window. Too fast. Too comfortable. People talk about betrayal like it happens in a flash. But the truth is, it happened slowly. In paper cuts. In receipts you didn't check. In awkward pauses when you mention someone's name. It happens in gut feelings you ignore because you love someone too much to believe they'd gut you with a smile. At 4:12, a light went on upstairs. I didn't move. I barely blinked. I just stared, and somewhere between 4:15 and 4:55, the cold stopped bothering me. I had crossed some kind of internal line. Look, before I continue, let me just say something directly. If this kind of story hits you, if you're one of the 90% listening without subscribing, maybe hit that button. It's not for the algorithm. It's for the folks behind the screen who keep digging into stories like this, putting it all together for you. It's what keeps us going. At 5:03, the side window shifted, just a crack. Enough for me to catch silhouettes. 2 of them. One moved like her. I knew the curve of her back, the way she tucked her chin when she laughed. I also knew the man she was laughing with wasn't me. He was taller, bigger. The shape of his head was wrong. He leaned in too close. At 5:41, the living room light flickered off. I imagined them moving upstairs. My jaw clenched, but I didn't cry. That part of me had dried up a while ago. Maybe I just hadn't admitted it until now. By 5:58, I was at the door. Not to yell. Not to throw a fit or punch walls like some rage-fueled sitcom cliché. No, I had already made my decision. My hand was steady as I slid the key into the lock. It was time. The silence was the loudest thing on that street. Not a single bird. Not even a rustle of wind through the brittle leaves still clinging to the maple out front. Just the hum of my engine cooling down and the sound of my breath. Steady, mechanical, like I was observing someone else's life from the outside. From my angle, I had a perfect view of the house. Not the whole thing, just enough. The front window, where we used to hang a little paper snowflake every winter, was tightly curtained. But the second floor, the side window, was a known weak spot. It didn't seal all the way. I used to joke that one day a squirrel would sneak in. Apparently, something worse had. At exactly 4:17 p.m., it lit up. Nothing dramatic. Just a faint, warm glow. Like someone had walked in and flipped the switch without thinking twice. But I knew that room. It wasn't a study. It wasn't a guest room. It was the one with the old TV we never upgraded, the beige carpet with the wine stain from her birthday 2 years ago. That room meant relaxation, comfort, familiarity. It wasn't a room you used for a quick meeting. I stayed in the car. No music. No calls. My phone buzzed twice, both from unknown numbers. I didn't answer. Instead, I zoomed in with my phone camera, steadying it against the steering wheel. Not to film, just to observe, like a scientist cataloging extinction. At 5:03 p.m., they made the mistake of walking past that side window. Just silhouettes. Her hair tied up the way she did when she wanted to get serious, like planning vacations we never took or budgeting for clothes she never bought for herself. The other figure? Male. Taller. Broad shoulders. He moved behind her. Close. Too close. His head dipped near hers. I saw her lean back and laugh. Then he put a hand on her hip. Just for a second. That second was enough. I didn't feel fire in my veins. I didn't feel heartbreak or rage or betrayal. Not in the way people expect. What I felt was a quiet rebalancing. Like all the weight I'd been carrying for years. The doubt. The silence. The too long meetings. The business trips that came with perfume she never wore for me. All of it had just clicked into place. She hadn't made a mistake. This wasn't a one-time thing. It was a routine. It was 5:27 when I opened the glove box and pulled out the old notepad I used for car maintenance logs. I flipped to the back. Started writing numbers. Dates. Company trips. Hotel confirmations. Every breadcrumb I'd ignored before. Now, they made sense. At 5:41, the living room light turned off. I watched the shadows move upstairs again. No rush. No guilt. Like they were home. 5:52, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I let it ring out. Then I checked my camera roll. The screenshot from her flight back from the Vegas conference. I compared it to a charge on our shared card. The timing matched up to an extra hotel night. She never told me about that. 5:55, another silhouette moved past the window. A quick flicker, probably just turning off a light. 5:58. I stepped out of the car. I wasn't shaky. I wasn't sweaty or nervous. If anything, I was calm. Calmer than I'd been in months. Because now, finally, I wasn't grasping at shadows or hoping for explanations. I had all the clarity I needed. Each step to the door felt final. Not dramatic. Just deliberate. I wasn't going in to ask questions. I wasn't going in to catch them in the act or scream or cry. I was going in to end a performance I never auditioned for. The key slid into the lock like it had 1,000 times before. But this time, when I turned it, I wasn't opening a door to my home. I was opening a door to the truth I'd already accepted. I wasn't the one being blindsided anymore. I was the one who knew. The front door eased open with a slow groan, and the scent hit me first. Amber cologne and something floral, not hers. It was the kind of artificial sweetness you find in hotel lobby soap dispensers. Not our home. Not my life. The air was still and heavy, like the house was holding its breath. No barking from our dog, because she'd donated him to a family friend a few months ago after I got too busy to walk him. No creaking floorboards above. No usual ambient hum of the dishwasher running on delay. Just silence until a sound. A laugh. Hers. Faint and close. Down the hallway. With that breathy lilt she only used when she was trying to seem smaller, cuter, helpless in the exact way that manipulated people into doing things for her. I'd heard that laugh before. She used it on landlords, waiters, my friends when she was joking, and I used to think it was charming. Now it felt like nails on a chalkboard dipped in betrayal. I stepped forward. My shoes made soft contact with the hardwood floor I had installed 2 summers ago while she was on a retreat for wellness and clarity. $3,000, my back shot for a week, and she hadn't noticed I changed the grain pattern. Voices went silent the moment the floor creaked. I saw a shadow twitch through the doorway at the end of the hall. I didn't rush. I didn't call out. I just walked. She rounded the corner first. She was barefoot, wearing a cardigan I bought her on our anniversary. The one she said made her feel safe. She stopped cold when she saw me, eyes widening in the way that wasn't guilt yet, just confusion, like she hadn't decided how to spin it. Wait, what are you? She started, then caught herself. I watched the entire calculus happen behind her eyes. Denial, apology, reversal, like she couldn't pick which mask to wear fast enough. Then he walked in from the hallway behind her, still buttoning his shirt, belt unlooked, face red, not from shame, from inconvenience. I recognized him from her LinkedIn connections, Senior Director of Operations. The one she always said was married with kids, a total bore. Guess he had a different reputation after hours. He opened his mouth, and the first thing out wasn't sorry. It wasn't even hello. It's not what it looks like. I raised my hand, not in anger, just to stop the charade. Don't explain, I said, my voice low but firm. Not to me. He looked confused, like he'd been preparing a whole speech and now had no script to follow. She took a step toward me. Wait, can we talk about this? I looked at her then, really looked. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't see the woman I married. I saw the woman who made me cancel a fishing trip to meet her boss at a charity gala. The one who asked if I could wear something less cheap to her company's year-end party. The one who once laughed at my attempt to surprise her with breakfast in bed and called it cute but exhausting. I turned and walked toward the door. Slowly, deliberately. I didn't slam it. I didn't curse. I didn't give them the satisfaction of knowing whether I was angry or hurt or dead inside. Because the truth was, I wasn't anything anymore. The second I stepped outside and closed that door behind me, I knew. Whatever they thought they'd taken from me, they hadn't even scratched the surface. They didn't know what silence really sounded like, but they were about to. The office couch wasn't meant for sleep. It was stiff, narrow, and smelled faintly of dry erase markers and cold coffee. But I laid there anyway, jacket still on, shoes barely untied. Outside, the city hummed, tires hissing on wet pavement, the occasional distant siren, the glow of late-shift fluorescence. But inside, everything was still. Not numb, not broken, just still. I stared at the ceiling tiles for maybe an hour before I moved. The heating unit kicked on at some point, rattling like a dying engine, and that sound finally pushed me up. I went to the file cabinet in the corner, second drawer, all the way back, and pulled out the envelope I hadn't touched since April. It was one of those heavy, off-white legal envelopes with the twine loop closure. I had sealed it myself, not because I was hiding anything, but because I wasn't ready to see it yet. Not until the math made sense. Tonight, it did. Inside was the draft of a trust agreement I'd started months ago, back when the firm's valuation crossed the 8-figure mark. A mix of stocks, real estate, partial holdings in a commercial property venture upstate. All of it in my name. Thanks to a small but key clause in our prenup that she never bothered to read. She thought the money was ours. She used to joke that I only knew how to invest, not enjoy. That she had to bring the soul into our finances. I let her believe that because it made her feel clever. Because, frankly, I was tired of arguing about dinnerware and hotel upgrades. But that envelope? That was mine. All mine. I opened it on the desk and sat down, pen in hand. Her name was right there, Melissa Harper, next to primary beneficiary. I stared at it for a long time, not out of hesitation, but ceremony. Like watching the final scene of a film you already knew the ending to. Then I drew a single black line through it. Below, I printed one name, Lily Harper. My daughter. It felt clean. Not cruel. Not spiteful. Just clean. I revised 2 other sections, property designations, power of attorney details, and pulled out the flash drive with the notarized backups. Plugged it in. Replaced the files. Re-exported a clean PDF. When I hit save, I didn't feel triumph. Just momentum. That's when I picked up my phone and scrolled until I found the contact I hadn't touched in 3 years, Davis King. We went to law school together. He used to draft dissolution agreements for tech couples in San Francisco. Always said he'd write a book called Love and Lithium Stock. He left that world when his sister had twins. Moved back to our city. Took a quieter gig. But his bite? Still sharp. He picked up on the second ring. Tom. His voice was groggy. You okay? I'm ready to file, I said. That was all. A pause. Then, prenup still valid. Signed, sealed, and unchallenged. He chuckled, humorless. Send me everything by morning. I'll put the wheels in motion. I hung up. No need for goodbyes. Davis understood the language of quiet endings. I leaned back in the chair and stared at the city skyline through the dark window. Somewhere out there, she was probably asleep in our bed, hers now, with sheets I paid for, in a house I remodeled, beside a man who thought buttoning his shirt late meant anything but exposure. But the funny thing about trust documents? They don't shout. They don't scream. They don't show up with cameras or screaming matches. They just change everything. Quietly. And that was exactly the kind of revenge I was interested in now. Brian didn't ask questions. Not the big ones, anyway. Not, are you sure? Or have you talked to her? We'd gone to school together, lived through bar prep hell together, and when I was rebuilding after my first business collapsed, he was the one who wired money without a signature. He knew the tone in my voice. When I called that Saturday morning, I didn't have to explain much. She's been sleeping with her boss, I said flatly. A beat of silence. Then, goddamn. She told me she hated him. I added. Said he was full of himself. Said he was one of those hovering types who didn't trust women to run teams without male supervision. Brian grunted. He still parks crooked every morning. Still brags about quarterly bonuses like it's a party trick. He ever mention her? There was a longer pause this time. Yeah, he said. He does. Too much. I didn't think much of it. But now that you're saying it, yeah. A lot of people in the building joke about it. Like, openly. One of the assistants calls her the future Mrs. Taylor. I stared out the window of my office. Below, a woman walked her dog in a yellow raincoat. Completely normal day for everyone else. I need a favor, I said. Can you give me proof that she used our joint account during those trips? Meals, flights, hotel upgrades. Anything that shows overlap between her business travel and his. Can I get you proof? Brian said, almost offended. Tom, I work 2 floors up from legal. My gym shares a wall with HR. I live for this kind of cleanup. He was quiet for a second, then added. Also, you should know something else. There's been some tension with leadership lately. Rumors her boss is getting promoted sideways to keep things quiet. Sideways? Yeah. A made-up title and an office in the other building so they can ease him out without noise. They don't want a scandal. Not with the merger. And her. No one's saying yet. But if you throw a grenade at the right desk, she's toast. Especially if she used company funds or violated the anti-fraternization policy. I'll send you dates, I said. He replied, don't bother. I already have a rough timeline just from hearing him brag in the elevator. Monday morning, you'll have what you need. He hung up. I didn't move for a while. Just sat there with my hands clasped tight enough to make my knuckles ache. You'd think that moment would hurt, the confirmation, the certainty. But it didn't. Pain had already passed through me like a virus. What came after wasn't emotion. It was precision. Monday morning, my inbox pinged at 8:03 a.m. Subject line, incoming firepower. Inside were PDF scans of hotel receipts billed to our joint Amex. 2 tickets for a Cirque du Soleil show after the conference. A room service bill that included a second breakfast at 6:30 a.m. I guess they got hungry. Then came the smoking gun, screenshots of Slack messages forwarded from someone in his department. Flirty, careless, stupid. She'd saved a selfie from her hotel room. Captioned, views better from up here, smiley face, with a champagne glass in the corner. Her boss replied with a wink emoji. A colleague added, you two should just get married already. And finally, the company policy manual, section 12.4, interoffice relationships. Direct quote, all romantic relationships between employees with reporting authority or relationships which may create perceived bias or conflict of interest must be disclosed immediately to HR. Failure to do so may result in disciplinary action or termination. She hadn't disclosed a thing. I read the documents twice. Then again, I wasn't looking for more hurt. I was mapping, calculating. Every line in those documents was a thread, and I was slowly pulling the whole sweater apart. By the time I closed the laptop, I wasn't thinking about her voice, or his stupid smirk, or the way she'd kissed my cheek the night before leaving for Boston. I was thinking about leverage. How much I had, and how much more I could quietly take. She sent the text on Thursday afternoon like nothing had ever happened. Hey, Claire invited us for dinner Saturday. She misses you. I thought we could talk a bit after, just the 2 of us. No pressure. No pressure. Right. She even used an exclamation mark in her follow-up text. Like we were playacting the soft, post-fight couple trying to reconnect. Like I was the fool in the rom-com who forgets the affair because the meatloaf was seasoned just right. I waited 2 hours before replying. Sure, I'll bring something. And I did. Saturday night, I walked into her sister's house holding a plain black folder. No label, no markings. Just an unassuming A4 envelope with a magnetic snap. She didn't even notice it at first. She was too busy playing hostess. Her laugh echoed in the hallway like nothing had happened. She touched my arm twice in the first 10 minutes. I let her. Claire greeted me with a warm hug and zero suspicion. She'd always been the neutral party. Her husband had a fantasy football draft on speaker the entire evening, so the dinner talk was mostly surface-level nonsense. Vacation photos, a leak in their upstairs bathroom, the price of salmon lately. Melissa, my wife, sat across from me, pouring wine, smiling politely. Her voice was a little too high, a little too practiced, like she was staging an alibi. She even complimented my shirt. You never wear that one, she said, as if I hadn't bought it the same weekend she was stuck in Denver because of fog. I said nothing. Halfway through the main course, grilled chicken with some roasted root vegetables she claimed was Claire's signature dish, I placed the folder quietly beside her plate. She froze. Her fingers hesitated near her wine glass. She glanced at me with a polite twitch of a smile, still pretending this was some normal dinner. Still clinging to whatever version of me she thought would break down and forgive her after a few empty apologies. She opened the folder. Silence. Inside, itemized charges from our joint Amex tied to her flights, side by side with company travel memos I'd pulled from their own HR portal. A hand-highlighted timeline. Business trips she'd forgotten to mention. A photo of the champagne bottle from her Vegas room, charged under the wrong name. One hotel invoice clearly labeled with both names, hers and his. Claire leaned over her shoulder, squinting. What's that? Melissa's face went pale, like someone flipped a switch inside her. Her hand trembled slightly as she shut the folder, slid it back toward me, and cleared her throat. Tom, can we talk? Alone. Her voice cracked. Just slightly. I looked at her. Really looked. For the first time in days, I saw her not as my wife, not even as the woman who betrayed me, but as someone desperately trying to negotiate with a version of me that no longer existed. I stood up, tucked the folder under my arm, and turned toward the hallway. She followed, of course. Scrambled, really. Shoes half on, voice rising in volume and desperation. Tom, wait. This is insane. You're blowing this out of proportion. I turned at the doorway. Calm. Clear. So did you. No anger in my voice. Just those 4 words, dropped like a gavel. Her mouth opened, then closed. Her sister appeared behind her, looking utterly lost. I walked to my car, folder still in hand. No goodbyes. No ultimatums. I had already delivered my message. In silence, in print. In fact, she couldn't outrun. Let her explain that dinner to her sister. Let her try to finish a meal seasoned with evidence. I didn't mail it out of rage. I mailed it the way you file taxes, methodically, with documentation. A plain manila envelope, no return address, dropped off at the security desk of her firm's downtown office tower at 7:42 a.m. sharp. Not at the main entrance, no. I walked around to the loading dock entrance, where couriers leave sensitive material for legal and compliance. Fewer questions that way. Inside the envelope, a neatly printed cover sheet labeled Compliance, HR Urgent. Below that, expense reports, mileage logs, a photocopy of the guest parking sticker with her boss's license plate, screenshots of her digital receipts from Uber showing pickups and drop-offs within minutes of each other in cities they claimed to be attending separate conferences. I even printed the Slack messages Brian had forwarded, sanitized, no names, but enough implication to make someone's neck sweat. The highlight, though, was the annotated timeline. Dates cross-referenced with her company's travel memos, our joint credit card transactions, and internal meeting logs pulled from their own public Zoom schedules. She hadn't just been sloppy, she'd been lazy. Too confident. Too emboldened by thinking no one would look twice. And they might not have. If not for one name I made sure to include in a post-it note stapled to the final page. See Section 12.4, Fraternization Clause. That was the part that made it legally volatile. Her company had been through a merger last quarter. They were trimming fat, shuffling leadership, scanning for liability landmines they could quietly remove before the board did. A scandal involving a senior director and a subordinate, especially one using company-funded travel, was a tailor-made time bomb. And the head of compliance? Used to sit with me on the oversight board for a nonprofit hospital trust. We'd had more than one late-night bourbon-fueled rant about corporate hypocrisy, nepotism, and how people like her boss were the rot that spread fastest. I didn't sign the envelope. I didn't have to. By Wednesday afternoon, things started happening. Melissa came home late. Hair down, eyes glassy, makeup faded. Said she had a weird day. Tried to explain something about a process review and how her department head got weirdly formal during their one-on-one. She asked if I could make pasta this week because she might have to stay late a few nights. I didn't ask questions. I just nodded. Thursday evening, I checked the firm's public directory. Her boss's name was no longer listed as Director of Operations. Just pending transition role. Internal limbo, a soft demotion while legal ironed things out. By Friday, she was told not to come into the office until further notice. That night, I overheard her on the phone in the guest bathroom. Her voice was hushed, frantic. No, he didn't report anything. I think someone else found out. Yes, I cleared the charges, but the timeline looks bad. I know. She came to bed and laid next to me like nothing had changed. But everything had. Her job was no longer her safety net. Her boss, her shield, her indulgence, her rebound fantasy, was now toxic inventory. HR would sweep it under the rug eventually, but not before tagging both of them with internal notes that would outlive their careers. The best part? She still didn't know it was me. She thought maybe a coworker had turned. Maybe it was an assistant who overheard too much. She'd spin for days trying to figure out the leak. And I'd be right there, watching, while the cracks spread through the walls she thought were untouchable. Revenge doesn't need to roar. Sometimes it just whispers into the right inbox. The courtroom wasn't dramatic. No gavel banging, no gasps from a packed gallery. Just gray walls, old carpeting, and a judge with caffeine in one hand and a tight schedule in the other. But for her, it may as well have been an execution chamber. We sat at opposite tables. She came in dressed for a magazine shoot. Cream blazer, gold chain, high heels that clicked a little too sharply on the tile. Her lawyer was younger than I expected. Polished. Confident. The type that smiles too much in commercials. Mine didn't say a word until spoken to. Just passed papers forward and nodded when required. I'd already done the work beforehand. The joint checking account? Emptied. My half removed. Hers frozen pending review of misuse. The retirement accounts? Split cleanly, as outlined in our prenup. Section 7, paragraph B. In the event of ethical breach or infidelity resulting in material damage to shared assets, the harmed party may claim full ownership of the primary residence and may nullify shared savings distribution. Her signature was right there, neat and proud, next to the notary stamp dated 7 years ago. The house was mine. The savings, too. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. I didn't even look at her unless absolutely necessary. Her lawyer began with the usual noise, irreconcilable differences, emotional manipulation, a plea for fairness. But it was clear he hadn't seen the folder. Not the real one. Not the version I'd filed the week before with documentation enclosed. Credit card records, screenshots, dates, times, the HR investigation letter confirming policy violations, the compliance timeline, and most damning of all, the highlighted prenup clause that specifically included breach of marital loyalty resulting in reputational damage. The judge took his time, flipped slowly, silent. Her attorney leaned over and whispered something to her. Her smile cracked for the first time. She glanced at me. I met her eyes for half a second. No malice, no warmth, just distance. She looked away. When the judge finally spoke, he was calm, efficient. Based on the submitted evidence and the validity of the signed marital agreement, the court recognizes full asset reallocation to the petitioner, including primary residence, financial holdings in dispute, and exemption from spousal support. Respondent retains independent retirement account and personal belongings. Any further claims will be deferred to arbitration. He didn't even look up when he said it. That's when she broke. He's trying to ruin me, she snapped, loud enough that her voice bounced off the courtroom walls. The judge blinked, unimpressed. Ma'am, the evidence suggests you did that yourself. Her lawyer tried to reel her back, but she wasn't done. Her face turned red, her mascara starting to blur, and for a moment, she looked less like the curated executive she played and more like someone realizing the stage lights had gone cold. I stayed silent. Not out of cruelty, out of clarity. My job wasn't to punish. It was to finish. When it was over, she lingered by the exit. I walked past her, slowly, folder in hand. She opened her mouth, maybe to say something, maybe just to breathe. But no words came out. I didn't stop walking, because I wasn't the one who lost anything in that room. She was. And the silence she left with? That was the loudest part. She didn't knock. Just walked straight into my office like she still had the right. Like the key card she no longer had at her own firm gave her some residual access to my time, my space, my patience. I was standing by the window, reviewing quarterly reports. The sun hit the skyline just right that afternoon. Everything lit in amber, sharp lines, and clean shadows. I barely turned. They're letting me go, she said. Her voice wasn't steady. She was trying to make it sound like she didn't care. Like this was just some professional bump, a glitch in her climb. But it cracked at the edges, thin as wet tissue. I didn't say anything. Didn't even blink. She stepped forward, placed an envelope gently on my desk. Cream paper, familiar handwriting. I never meant to hurt you, she said softly, like we were still starring in the same movie. You know that, right? The words hung in the air like smoke from a fire that had long since burned the house down. I finally looked at the envelope. No address. Just my name. She lingered. I lost everything, she added. And there it was, the real plea, buried under practiced lines. I didn't move. She opened her purse, pulled out a folded paper, creased, wrinkled at the corners. She laid it next to the envelope. I caught the header, her company's logo. Formal. Cold. Then, termination of employment, violation of conduct policy, clause 12.4, section B. Breach of ethics. Insubordination. Failure to disclose conflict of interest. I scanned it. Her boss's name was there too. Smaller font. Voluntary resignation, effective immediately. No forwarding address. No reference letter. Just a quiet erasure. I'm not asking for much, she said. Just, maybe we can talk. Get coffee. Start over. Start over. I picked up the envelope slowly. Felt the weight of it. Her note was inside. Probably long. Probably overwritten. Probably filled with the same performative guilt she used on everyone else when Charm stopped working. I didn't open it. Tom, she said, and this time her voice broke. Please. I placed the envelope back on the desk. Didn't look at her. Didn't answer. Just sat back down in my chair and resumed scrolling through revenue reports from Q3. That was the final break, I think. She waited a few seconds longer, then walked out. No door slam. No last word dramatics. Just the soft click of heels down the hallway, gradually fading into nothing. I never opened the envelope. Because I didn't need to. Whatever it said, whatever apology or explanation or nostalgic callback to who we used to be, it didn't matter. She wasn't part of my story anymore. Not the real one. Outside, traffic moved on like nothing happened. And I stayed right where I was. Exactly where I'd earned the right to be, unbothered. Unreachable. Done. The gymnasium smelled like old wood and cupcakes. Streamers sagged from the ceiling like tired smiles, and paper rockets hung on string above cardboard planets painted by fifth graders with more ambition than accuracy. A projector screen in the corner played a slideshow of the kids, science fair winners, robotics club, a group of girls covered in glitter holding up code like a girl posters. It was loud and chaotic and full of the kind of messy joy I hadn't touched in months. But I wasn't there for nostalgia. I stood near the back wall, next to a fold-out table with raffle tickets and lukewarm coffee. Dressed down. No name tag. Just another dad showing up. Except I wasn't just another dad. Not anymore. The principal found me before the end of the night. Middle-aged, kind eyes, half-bald with a tie that had stars on it. Mr. Harper? He asked quietly. I nodded. He glanced around, then leaned in, voice low. The new STEM scholarship. You didn't want your name on the banner, but I just wanted to say thank you. You have no idea what this will mean for some of these families. It's not charity, I said. It's fuel. He smiled, unsure what I meant. I didn't clarify. The scholarship fund I'd established quietly, through a shell nonprofit I set up in under 48 hours, was now fully operational. Initial disbursement, $30,000. Target recipients, children of single parents dealing with transition, instability, or domestic betrayal. The kind of families that have to rebuild from wreckage they didn't create. I hadn't even told my daughter. Not yet. She'd find out in time. For now, it was enough that she was thriving, oblivious to the quiet war her mother had lost. Across the gym, Miss Callahan caught my eye. Her hair was pulled back, sleeves rolled up, hands covered in paint from helping the art table. She gave me a nod. No words, just a look that said everything. The kind of look people give you when they know they did the right thing, and you know it too. I left before the last speech. Later that night, as I was locking up my place, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Of course. I opened the message. I can't pay rent. Can we talk? 6 words. That's all. There was no punctuation, no please. Just desperation typed in a rush, like she wasn't sure how to word it without losing face. Still trying to maintain some echo of control. I read it once, then replied. Apply to the scholarship. Maybe they'll help. Then I blocked the number. I didn't smile. Didn't cry. Didn't feel anything explosive. Just clarity. I poured a drink. Sat by the window. Watched the streetlights flicker on one by one. No ceremony, no applause. For the first time in months, I stepped fully into a house that didn't carry her shadow. No voices behind closed doors. No fake laughter echoing down the hall. Just silence. Real silence. And peace. Finally,